Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. My name is Ryan Buck. This tutorial is going to cover the Design Staff Hour Estimation Forms, tab 29, Mapping. Here is a view of the new format. We're calling it the calculator format. This new format was released in September of 2023. As you can see, you get some information. It looks similar to the old format with some names and signature boxes. On the right is how to use this form. You've got a link to video tutorials, including this one. It's a library of all of the new tab forms, as well as some instructions on how to use it, which I will be covering in this video tutorial. At the bottom right is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need any assistance or support while using these forms. If you have any questions, if you find any errors, let me know and we can get it fixed. And also, if you have any recommendations on how to improve or make this form better for your use. All right, with that, let's dive in and walk through tab 29 and show you how to use this new version or updated version of the spreadsheet. All right, with this new calculator version, the first thing we're going to do is enter in project parameters. So we're going to tell the form information about the project based on the scope of services that are to be provided. And these are done using either units, length, section, number, quantities, maybe lump sum, and then we're going to tell it the complexity of that task. And so you'll see a drop down right here, complexities. It's either a simple complexity, a standard complexity, or a complex complexity. And we have some guidelines and some information that'll help determine what it means to be a simple, standard, or complex. Once you enter in these parameters, it's going to suggest in this cell right here a calculated hours, and these are recommended staff hours based on the parameters you just entered in and the established guidelines. Those guidelines are published and they are on the Scope of Staff Hour website and a spreadsheet that is right next to these forms that you can download and look into those guidelines to see how it calculates the values. This calculated value is then used as a starting point for an estimate based on the parameters you entered, and the department staff and the consultants have to determine if that calculated value is appropriate for their specific project. If it is, they can roll with the calculated hours through negotiations. If it is inaccurate, maybe you need to add hours for effort on that project, or reduce the hours that it's recommending based on those project specifics. And you'll have to determine and negotiate with each other to finalize the final negotiated hours for each line item. So let's quickly go through each line item and I'll show you how the spreadsheet works. So any of the cells that have red font are meant for user input, or red shaded blocks that are a drop down for the user input. A black font is either text or it's a calculation that is not meant to be edited. Then you also have your documentation column over here to document any and all items that you need to put over here. So we'll start first. We've got our master CAD file. We start with our alignment 29.1. So we're going to enter in the length of the alignment in miles. I'm just going to put some numbers in here as an example so you can see how the spreadsheet works. And then it asks what is the complexity of the alignment, and you can see it's a simple configuration with tangents, standard configuration, mix of tangents, curves, multiple curves, ramps, spirals, etc. We'll just say it's complex for this example. And you can see right there it recommends 8 hours based on 2 miles of complex. You can agree with the 8 hours or increase it or decrease it and negotiate as necessary. Again, this is a recommended starting point based on the guidelines, not your specific project. So 29.2 is sections and quarter section lines, so you'd enter in the number of sections. I'm just going to show some examples right here, and then you'd also say the complexity of this task, and it has sections that are not defined as complex or containing government lots, so you'd select either standard or complex, right? 29.3 subdivisions. This one you'd do number of blocks. Again, I'm just going to use some numbers as an example to show you. And then you'd choose the complexity of that task, standard blocks, complex blocks. All right. And it's going to recommend staff hours. So the first step would probably be to enter in these project parameters, get your calculations, and then review the calculated hours and determine if they're accurate. Or you could do line item by line item, see, oh, 32, yep, 32 works. You could put 32 there, 24, and so on and so forth. All right, 29.4 is property line, so this is based on number of tracks. Again, I'm just using numbers to kind of show you how it works. You do the complexity. All right, and it tells you what standard tracks is and a complex tracks is. 29.5, existing right-of-way. This is based on length, again, in miles. So you've got your project length, includes side streets. And you'd have to drop down your complexity of the existing right-of-way. We'll say it's simple based on this. 29.6 is their topography. All right. And so on and so forth. So you'll fill this out. All right, parent tracks, properties, existing easements. So this is based on the number of parcels, and you'd choose your complexity of the parcels. Proposed right-of-way requirements, again, number of parcels. What is the estimated complexity of this task? A lot of this information too is also in the guidelines, so if you need to reference the guidelines, you can download that from the website. 29.9 is limits of construction. All right. 29.10, jurisdictional agency lines, linear mile. So this is the length in linear mile. Linear mile is defined as the length of the actual lines being plotted, not the project length. And then you've got your configurations. Then we move on into sheet files. So 29.11, control survey cover sheet. If you have a cover sheet, it's a 1 or a 0 right here. So a 1 being yes, you have a cover sheet, a 0 being no, and it would be 0 hours. Then you got 29.12 is your actual control survey key sheet. And you can see the sheet is 24 by 36, so number of sheets. We'll just say we have 1, and the complexity of that. All right. Then you've got your control survey detail sheet. So let's say we have 2 detail sheets. Again, they're simple, being rural, low density. All right, same thing with the right-of-way map. You've got your cover sheet, your key sheet, and your detail sheet. Then you got your maintenance map, cover sheet, key sheet, detail sheet. You got your reference point sheet, so you'd enter in those same number of units and complexity. If it's a gray square, there's no complexity involved. It's just going to recommend a number of hours without complexity. Reference point sheets, so this is each, so number of center line points. I'm going to recommend a number. And then we've got our project control sheet. All right. And then table of ownership sheets, so number of parcels. Oh, I didn't enter in a complexity for that. All right. Now we're getting down into our miscellaneous surveys and sketches. So we've got our parcel sketches based on number of parcels. We've got our TITF sketches. Oh, and of course you need to do complexity, otherwise it will not it will not recommend a number of hours. All right. 29.25, other specific purpose surveys. So if you had any of those, if you didn't have any, you would leave it 0. It would be 0 hours. Boundary survey maps, same thing, number of boundary surveys. Right-of-way momentum maps would be number of sheets. You got your title search map. So is this required? Yes or no? In this case, you'd do yes, we have one. And you'd have a complexity, standard or complex. Then you've got your report, for your title search report. And then legal descriptions. So parcels and legal, so civil, standard or complex. All right, and that should sum up your total for your hours for the mapping of the technical subtotal. Now we're going to get into the non-technical subtotal. So you've got QA, QC, and supervision in 29, 31, and 29, 32. These are default as 1 as on, but you can turn them to 0, and it would give 0 hours for these line items, and you would do it right there. It's going to recommend or calculate based on 5% for QACC and 5% for supervision. And so all of these will calculate 23 hours, 5% of that. This one will calculate for these and so on and so forth. If you wanted to use a different percentage other than 5, you can do so. You would use it over here by documenting I want to use 7% for QAQC. And you could manually calculate what 7% of the technical subtotal is, and you would enter it in this red font right here, manually override the equation, and enter it in there. You can do the same thing for supervision as well. Moving on to the mapping meetings. The meetings, you use the table below. It says listed below. Here's the table below, so you would enter in your meetings right here in the red. So let's just say we had 2 local governments meetings. We had 1 comment review meeting, 1 utility coordination meeting, and 1 other meeting. All right, so it calculated 5 meetings. That meeting right here carries up to the number of meetings here. The guidelines suggest 2 hours per meeting, so just know that that's what the guidelines are suggesting. Sometimes you might have really long meetings of 4 or 8 hour meetings. Sometimes you might have really short half-hour meetings. So take that into account. You might have to adjust this calculated value as needed for accuracy. Then there's a column for travel time. So this is any travel time that is required for in-person meetings. Let's just say there's 2 hours of travel time for the local government's meetings, and everything else is done virtually. That 2 hours will carry up here for travel time for the meetings. And then your PM meetings, if the PM is required, these meetings carry over to tab 3, where for the PM to attend those meetings and the documentation. All right, 2934 is for field reviews. This is a new table down here, and there's up to 4 field reviews and a plans in hand field review. This is filled out by the number of staff required for the field review. So let's just say there's 1 field review needed, 2 staff need to attend. They need to spend 4 hours on site, so that's 8 hours for each of them. And let's just say it took an hour to get to the site, so there is time for travel time, so that's 10 hours for the field review, and that carries up right here. That's how the field review works. All right, then we've got coordination. That works very similar to QA/QC and supervision. It's going to calculate 3% if you want to use 2% or a different percentage. Again, the same way, enter it in over here and override the equation right here in this cell. And then 2936 is supplemental mapping. This is just on a case-by-case. There's no guidelines on it, and you just enter in the recommended hours for supplemental mapping in these. It'll all sum up, and this final negotiated cell right here will carry over to the summary sheet for hours distribution, and then you'll have your hours with this form. Again, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial video. Thanks for watching.